I am a survivor of child rape, child molestation, of some really horrific, terroristic type abuse from a lot of people. The worst of my physical abuse came from my father. And a little background, my father is from Texas, and he's a black man from Texas. And so he grew up watching people be lynched. Grew up in the deep South. He grew up in the country, Tyler, Texas, and just in the country. So lots of things were backwards and backwoods and lots of horrific things. He witnessed a lot of like hardcore, ugly side of Jim Crow and racism and all that kind of stuff. So being that child of that, being a child that like his own childhood was, the discipline that was given and doled out was really abusive, because we are children, African American people are children of extreme abuse. Like the torturous tactics that were used to keep us in line during slavery is something that our community repeats, and we beat the fuck out of our children because that's what we were taught. Slavery was only 150 years ago, and really we're only 70 years, because after that, like, conditions of slavery didn't end for a good 40 to 50 years for a lot of people. So black folks, especially in this country, are only 70 years like into the game. Which means we carry a lot of, aspects of post-traumatic slavery disorder. So the abuse that was handed down to me is because of colonization, because of slavery. So what my dad doled out to me never saw as abuse, and it was things like I was stripped naked and tied to poles and beaten, tied to stripped naked and hog-tied and beaten, like really horrific things. Face rammed into concrete walls. It was bad. But with all that being said, at 18, I decided to get free, and I decided to live a different life and do some healing around that. And so I was homeless for a bit. I spent some time in Urban Peak and got my shit together and did what I needed to do. But that whole time, there was no adult in my life, even though they saw what was going on, who defended me, who believed me, who protected me, who helped. Like, I had to survive that all on my own. In addition to other stuff like that I survived and gone through. But the point of the story is to kind of fast forward to today. That was all kind of background information. Today, I ended up talking to an uncle that I haven't spoken to in over 25 years. And this was an uncle that the few memories I had of him, he had all the kids. He had like 1,000 kids, and his house was always like the house where all the other kids went. And he just didn't have as much money as like my dad and my side of the family did, but he had all the love. And it was, those were, being at his house, with my cousin, were brief moments of reprieve, or brief moments I could just be a kid and be and do and just be loving. So, because like there's all kinds of dynamics in my family. My dad was a bad person internally, but he cleaned up really well, and he did that good old Southern thing of masks. Southern people are really good at, you think it's all perfect and looks really good, and all kinds of fuck shit is going on in the background. You don't see any of that. It's very polished. So he's really good at that. So he was more uplifted. Him and my other uncle were uplifted in the family, and then the other uncles were kind of not, the ones who had problems with jail or whatever. But they were all products of abuse. Like every single one of them were jacked up because they were all products of abuse. So long story short, this uncle, he emailed me about a month and a half ago, and the email was basically like, I first want to say that I apologize. And he had gotten a hold of, I'm really public about my story and share it on, social media anywhere, motivational speaker, all that, poet. I'm very open about what I've gone through, because it's important for me to be an example for other people and other survivors, and then we have to talk about it, and you always have to talk about it. So he got a hold of, I believe it was a picture that I had posted on Instagram, and the picture was about my smile. And the background in the picture, I was just telling about how my father, when we finally had one of us come to Jesus when I was 26, he literally told me that he kept beating me because I wouldn't stop smiling, because I would not break. And that was really fucking hard to hear. So because of that, though, this is the thing that I value the most. because it's an act of defiance, and it's an act of defiance not only towards abusive people, but towards an oppressive system. Like, this system did not have a plan for Black people. We were supposed to be enslaved forever or die. That's what happened to the Native people when they were enslaved here. And so we managed to beat that, and we managed to come from that, and we managed to still be we're broken, but we're still joyful. We still, like, create shit. We created jazz in the middle of, like, deep oppression. We created hip-hop. We enhanced every national pastime in this country, in the middle of oppression. So my smile is a defiant act. But today, this, in the email that my uncle sent was the first time that an adult man in my family or an adult anybody acknowledged what happened to me and stood behind me and stood behind my decision to leave my family because they didn't want to heal. This was the first time that I had off top just been believed, and that's, and that's really the point of this story, is like when people are abused or when people need help, believe them, and how damaging that can be, and how being a public figure in my city, I have always been believed by strangers. People can tell when I'm speaking truth, and it has always hurt that my truth has been denied by my family, even though a lot of them witnessed it and they knew what happened. And so today, for the first time, I was believed by a blood relative, and I felt protected, and I felt, loved, because in the abuse that my dad experienced and what he experienced under Southern racism and the extreme amount of things he went through, he's crazy, and he's psychotic, and he wasn't born that way, though. That happened, things kind of happened to make him that way. So, but it was the first time that I have been validated by the older generation. And it was the first time that I felt protected by the older generation. And how much, like, the other part of that story is how many Black women walk around and we have felt unprotected, and how we have felt, even this society, I function a lot alone, and I also am a leader, and I'm oftentimes unprotected in those things, except the protection I give to myself. So, it was incredibly freeing, and for those who get to feel protected all the time, like, fucking cherish that, because not all of us get to feel that. And for me, it was, the little girl inside, like, hopped up and down and has been crying off and on all day, because that is so important, So if you have children or adults or people in your life who have been abused, please believe, and also know that Black women are the least protected, and we are the least helped, and we are the least healed by others, and we oftentimes end up protecting ourselves, and we end up healing ourselves. So if you know a Black girl or a Black woman, protect her, and believe her truth, and believe her tragedy, and you don't need to she's not anything less than, well, that's the point. So protect little girls. And for me today, as being a medicine woman and a healer, and someone who's worked on these issues since the age of 18 years old, and who helps other people move through these issues, that was one of the most validating things that can be done. That was done. That was a level of healing that I reached today that I couldn't have done on my own. Like, I needed that outside space. So that's kind of what I wanted to share, So, yeah, that's part of my book. And I'm sticking to it.